Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we discuss the possible return of Constantin Valdor. General spoiler warning to begin, as we will be discussing events from across the world of Warhammer 40k, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so last week we discussed the essence of the character of Constantin Valdor. How in being a Custodes, he is completely and utterly dedicated to the Emperor of mankind, truly incapable of ever turning against him, and how Valdor himself possibly represents those traits more than any other of his kind. And this raised the question to consider: how much can Valdor truly think for himself? Could he ever think outside the confines of the Emperor, or would he be forever bound to it? The answer to me is the latter. Now this brings us to his disappearance and possible one-day return. And well, while I'm sure most people out there know the rumour of Valdor's possible return due to the buzz it created, I'm saying it again, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. In the Dan Abnett novel Penitent, there is a book found believed to contain the name of the infamous King in Yellow. And you guessed it, the first words in the book were none other than Constantin Valdor. Cue dramatic music. Now, for some reason, if you're listening to this and you didn't know that before, in as simple an explanation as possible, the King in Yellow is a very powerful and mysterious figure, who, while his true purpose is currently unknown, it is believed to be to acquire the true name of the Emperor of mankind, at least by Inquisitor Eisenhorn. One thing, however, it undoubtedly involves is the Immaterium and combating chaos. Now, could this King in Yellow be Valdor? Well, of course, possibly yes. However, I'm not committing to it just yet. First off, Mr. Abnett certainly seems to love throwing a good twist into a story. So a major tease like this before the final book in the trilogy just seems too good to be true to me. Call me a skeptic at the moment. Other reasons I have for still being a little dubious are the storyline themes heavily around clones, and things not being quite as they first appear, which again just makes me feel like this revelation could be too good to be true. And finally, the timeline. I believe, now I could be wrong, but I believe this storyline is set back before the opening of the Great Rift, before the return of Guilliman. And I know it's the Inquisition and the Immaterium we're talking about, but I just feel something would have come out if it were the true Valdor himself. I mean, we've been witness now to Guilliman's actual confrontation with the Emperor. I mean, surely the Emperor would have said something at least then. But regardless of my concerns here, or maybe just not wanting to get my hopes up, it is worth bringing up what we do know about Valdor's disappearance again. In the Horus Heresy short story Two Metaphysical Blades by Chris Raitt, we are actually witness to Constantin Valdor's departure from the Imperium, as the Primarch Leman Russ becomes stricken by a vision only he can see, before delivering his famous farewell address and departing into the stars. Across the galaxy upon Terra, Constantin Valdor spies a vision of Fenris, and rather than seeming surprised, he merely remarks how it's sooner than he expected, and we're then given the luxury of his thoughts, showing us there was much he wanted to do before he had to depart. and this to me is clear sign that Valdor and Russ are both sent on their particular errands by none other than the Emperor of Mankind. Russ by surprise, believing his father would never speak again, and Valdor quite clearly expecting it the entire time, which relays perfectly back to a conversation the two had earlier in the short story, with Russ giving in to his despair and Valdor comforting his friend that he should not give up hope in the Emperor's plan just yet. So wherever Constantin Valdor did go, it would appear it was undoubtedly in service to the Emperor, which, as we discussed last week, is integral to everything he's ever done. Valdor doesn't make the decisions, he carries out the orders. Now, does this preclude him from being the King in Yellow? No. Essentially, in a manner, it would appear the King in Yellow is engaged in a war against chaos within the Immaterium. The argument could be made this is Valdor continuing the Emperor's own plan, and under his direct order no less. And in regard to the Emperor's true name storyline, there is the theory that if Valdor acquired it, rather than acquiring it to have control over the Emperor, he could use it to resurrect or heal the Emperor. So that storyline could make sense here too. The biggest conundrum to me is, judging by Valdor's disappearance, not only is it undoubtedly at the Emperor's command, but it is almost certainly tied to Leman Russ. So when Valdor does return, you would assume so too would Russ. Or if not at least a full-on return, there has to be some kind of major reveal to just where is the Wolf King. And that's perhaps the biggest problem I have with a Valdor return anytime soon, because I just don't see a return of Russ yet. You know me, I would love Russ back more than anything else, but everything, it appears to me, is staged so perfectly for the Lion. The escape of Luthor, the rise of Fallen within the Somnium Stars, the Lion being asleep beneath the rock with his wounds fully healed, awaiting only the Emperor's call, an Emperor who is now actively out there acting within the galaxy, with Guilliman returned and essentially up to his old unremembered Empire tricks. Everything to me is pointing to the Lion. A Leman Russ return just wouldn't make sense. Now again, the Valdor Russ involvement does open up some real interesting possibilities. That it's not Valdor seeking the Emperor's true name, but maybe Russ seeking the Tree of Life, and that Valdor's war within the Immaterium is merely a part of or tied to this quest in some way. That each of the two are playing out their own parts. It'd certainly be an awesome finale to read, and if anyone could pull it off, then you know it would be Dan Abnett. But for me, like I said, I just can't see a return of Russ yet, or even really a major reveal about him yet. And hey, there's no one who wishes I'm wrong here more than me, but given what we know about their disappearance, I just can't see a return of one of them without the other. So that in turn leads me to believe that the King in Yellow just maybe won't be Constantin Valdor. So the return of Valdor could perhaps be a long way off yet. However, one thing is for sure, if the King in Yellow does turn out to be Valdor, we could expect a major advancement on the return of the Wolf King too. But as always guys, what do you think? What do you think of Valdor's final disappearance? Do you still believe it is truly tied to Russ's 2? And if so, will their return also be linked? What do you feel about the major reveal of Valdor related to the King in Yellow? And if it does turn out to be Valdor himself, why has he not returned to the Imperium since? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.